food stores from Santa Barbara to San Diego and throughout Los Angeles were very small, probably everywhere from 500 square feet, maybe 1,000 square feet. And they would specialize in certain things, mostly supplements, some only supplements and canned packaged goods. Some had uh, bulk foods that you could scoop out of uh, bowls and containers. And aisles were narrow. The gondolas, if there were any, were quite high. No health food store had everything that you wanted. They really specialized in certain things. And by the way, they really knew, for the most part, about the products that they were selling. In San Diego, where I found wonderful bulk foods, the owner would go out and talk to the farmers and bring in these special grains and seeds and nuts. He really knew what he was doing. And then there were other health food stores that even would cook a couple of foods that you could buy. And so that they really knew what they were doing. Actually, Gladys Lindbergh had a statement, keep in the pink. And there was a little place for lunch and other little areas where you could buy certain things. And that was just terrific when I would go in there. Others knew what they were doing about the supplements that they would sell. And by the way, there weren't that many lines and products, but there were some. And people, even in those days, were reading and looking for things that would help them with their health. So, all across the coastline, there were wonderful examples of great techniques and products. Once the lease was signed, I knew that I would have to have financing for this market. And so I assumed that my bank would give me a loan. I felt I didn't need that much money. And so anyway, I would go to my bank and they declined. And their rationale, the hidden rationale, I believe, was because I was a woman. But their rationale was there were no markets like the one that I was envisioning anywhere. So, how could they understand that it would be a success? Because there were no models for them to follow. And so, not only my bank, but other banks that I went to, many, would not give me a loan to open up this store. And so what I did is I took out a second loan on my house, and with my teacher retirement money, I took that out, and with the second from loan that I got and the teacher retirement money, I was able to use that to infuse with the financing that was needed. So now that I had this market lease signed, now to think about the name. The name that I thought of was the Greater Los Angeles Natural Food Emporium. Fortunately, I had a friend who was an advertising agent, And as the friendship developed over decades, I felt comfortable enough in calling up Doug and saying, Doug, I'm going to open up this market. This is what I'm thinking of calling it. What do you think? And I gave him my idea, and he said, Sandy, give me a day. I have to really consider what you're thinking. The next day, he called me back and he said, Well, I've thought of a name. Sandy, you cannot call it the Greater Los Angeles Natural Food Emporium. Don't you want to have more stores and go out of the Los Angeles area? And I said, Well, sure, Doug. I don't want just one store. I would like to have more. And he said, Well, then that name isn't going to cut it. So I have another name for it. What is it, Doug? Mrs. GOOCH'S. And I pondered and I said, Doug, nobody will come to a store with a name like that. And he said, Oh, yes, they will. From there, Doug developed the logo, which the logo, of course, is very, very friendly. But he developed the ad for our first grand opening ad that ran in the Los Angeles Times newspaper. And it was a full page ad, and it had a lot of information in it. Nothing about buy two for the price of one or anything like that. And then down at the bottom were a few items that we featured that were on sale. The ad ran, and the parking lot was jammed. The police had to come to help with traffic, etc. And can you imagine? I had to call up the LA Times because we had scheduled for 4 weeks in a row and cancel the remaining 3 weeks of advertising because we couldn't handle it. We had to add additional cash registers. So that was a very interesting start to the grand opening of Mrs. Gooch's. And by the way, even before the grand opening, as we were stocking the shelves, we had one cash register. People would walk in from all places. We had Rastafarians from Topanga. We had people from Beverly Hills who had word of mouth heard about this, and they would walk in. There we were with our carts and cartons, stocking shelves, and they say, I want this. I want to buy that. And so we actually, before we even opened, were checking out groceries for people who couldn't wait. The decision in regard to what products I would carry, I had knowledge as I had gone into all of these different health food stores in regard to what was a good product, quality, for so far as supplements and other things were concerned. In regard to other things such as canned and packaged, boxed goods, my father certainly helped me with that and did a lot of research as it related to the ingredients, the manufacturing process. Additionally, the word got out that this market was going to open, and people would come into it. This was before it was open, and start explaining about their product, whether it would be a supplement or whether it would be produce or some other thing. This is where it's grown, this is how it's grown, etc. And that time there weren't as many affidavits as we certainly have now. But through that process, I brought in everything that made sense, everything that fit my criteria, and was ready to open. you can see one of our old philosophy and all, and I'll just read it. Mrs. GOOCH'S is dedicated to bringing you the finest, most natural, wholesome foods available. We require that our suppliers guarantee the quality of their products and furnish independent laboratory analysis or signed affidavits upon request. Through continued nutritional education and commitment to service, our hope is to be the most caring family market in America. Then I have the criteria. Accordingly, our goal is to offer you foods without harmful chemical additives, harmful preservative agents, artificial flavorings, artificial colorings, artificial sweeteners, refined white sugar, refined white flour, caffeine, chocolate, hydrogenated oil, isolated synthetic MSG, and we do not carry irradiated foods and alcoholic beverages. And company principles provide meaningful work, fair compensation, and a safe, healthy work environment. Offer the opportunity for co-workers to develop their inherent potential and participate in the evolution of the organization. Conduct all business transactions with integrity, leading to the mutual benefit of all concerned. And it goes on and on. Some of the brands that I was featuring were brands where I would either visit and observe what was going on, or people would come in and explain to me why their product was so wonderful. In regard to produce, there was a man by the name of Gypsy Boots who in the desert area was growing medjool dates. And he would come in with these medjool dates in his trunk, and they were organic. And he would even pass them out, and there he was dressed in this weird outfit, for long hair and so forth. But he was a character, and this characterization was imbued within the public that would come into the markets. Additionally, Cal Organics was a wonderful organic company right here in California. And then we would even fly up to Seattle, where Cascadian Farms was located in Washington, and observe how they grew their produce and what was that about and how did they ship. So no matter what it was, there was attention to detail in regard to the process. I remember one day a gentleman came into the store. His name was Rand Skolnick. He was the son of Alan Skolnick, who started Solgar Vitamins back on the East Coast. And Rand came in and said, "You have to carry this product," and went into a wonderful long diatribe with accessory paperwork, etc., about why I needed to carry Solgar Vitamins. Not long after, I flew back to see the manufacturing process in Solgar Vitamins. And that's really what happened all along the way of investigating, going downtown LA, seeing the produce market, interviewing people, getting paperwork to make sure that everything we carried met our standards. When I talk about a business, or certainly Mrs. GOOCH'S Markets, a word that comes into my mind is romance. And romance envelops people and it draws them into whatever they're participating in. So the romance of Mrs. Gooch's included how did it look? How inviting was it? How were the shelves stocked? What did the employees know? How did they impart that information? What kind of brochures, flyers did we have? What was the entertainment and what was the entertainment? In regard to romance, entertainment, we had demonstrations about how to cook food, how something tasted. We had taste samples. We had brochures for recipes. Let me just show you one brochure right here. And every week, a different recipe brochure would be available. We had scenes and themes up on gondolas. Let me just show you one example. So then, when the mother or father or family would come in with the kid in the cart, the kid wasn't crying and all upset. Kid was looking up at all of the scenes and the themes. Mommy, look at that. I want that. Mommy, look at that. And so it was an inviting experience. We had blenders that we would turn on and pour in blended juice and hand out a recipe. So throughout the store was the edutainment of this is what it is, this is how it works. Here's an example of the edutainment that we did. The entertainment with all of the demos and things that occurred. So there was engagement. People walked in, they knew that was going to be theater whenever they would be there. Most every day, our first store would have some sort of a demo, whatever it might be. We even had a frozen yogurt station in the first store. And so we'd have these small little cones and we'd pass them out so people could taste that. So no matter what we did, there was fun and engagement. Even as people would check out on the checkout stand, there might be a sample for them to grab and take. The philosophy on hiring was I wanted to have people who understood this kind of lifestyle. And interestingly enough, through word of mouth at the beginning, they would come in and say, I want to work for you. People in the neighborhood and far away would say, please, can I come and work for you? Because I just love being here. So it wasn't as if we put out a great big ad and were seeking people to hire. They just came and said, here I am, and please give me a job. And it really turned out well because of their desire, because it wasn't, oh my gosh, I have to do this. It was because of their desire. And so their energy was in it. And then we continued as the stores opened and more came on board. We educated the employees. We educated them about our philosophy, our company, what our goals were. We had meetings. They would come in early. They were paid for these meetings. In the stores, we would educate all of the employees about new products so that, for instance, the produce man, the meat person, the person in the supplement department, all of those team members were getting the same information. Thus, what truly would happen is a person in the produce department would say, you're buying these wonderful onions, and there is a sale going on, or they just got new product of shrimp in the fish department. You really should go over there and check that out. Or a person in the supplement department would say, well, in addition to this vitamin, let me take you down to the grocery department because that might fit in with what you are buying. So they were totally aware of every department, what was going on, what new was coming in. And so there was really an entire gestalt of what was happening. There was scarcity at times with certain products in our industry. It's a fledgling industry during that period of time. At no time did I bring in a product that would suffice, but wasn't up to our standards. And sometimes we just fill in the shelves with products that we had. Other times we'd make calls and talk to people about, could you manufacture this? We can't get it anymore. Can you do that? And they'd say, well, yeah, we can do that. Give us a week, give us a month. We can fill in that challenge. So we never compromised. And yes, there was scarcity because, again, people were learning. This was a learning opportunity for growers, manufacturers, and stores. We had quite a few memorable product introductions from people, from companies that nobody was aware of. One example was Coleman Natural Beef, located in Saguache, Colorado. Mel Coleman drove down from Colorado to talk to me in our office. And he talked to me about his farm, or actually his land. It was BLM, Bureau of Land Management, 240,000 acres in Saguache that he had his cattle raised on. And what he did is he had 4 quadrants within these 240,000 acres. And every 3 years, one of those quadrants was non-graze. The cattle weren't there. They were moved to another area so that the land had a chance to regenerate. These cattle were there grazing on grass, not fed anything that was bad, not given any drugs or anything. And so he told us about that. My husband and I went up to see his place, and it was amazing. And we got on horses and took a look, miles and miles, it seemed to us, of these cattle grazing peacefully. So that was a very memorable time. The other was when I was looking for just the best eggs that you could find. And there was a company in New Zealand called Friends, FRENZ, eggs. They were non-pasteurized. They were organic. And they were flown in and to the Los Angeles airport, and the government didn't know what to do with these eggs. Well, what's going on? Non-pasteurized? What? But anyway, we finally got the shipment. And for quite a few years, we carried Friends eggs. So those are classic examples. One, from a product coming from a long distance, but the highest quality. And the other, and dedicated people too, by the way. and the other coming from a very dedicated man who had just figured this all out with raising cattle the right way. The cross section for the first store, with in regard to our customer base, included almost anything that you can think of. We had bodybuilders, we had people coming in from Beverly Hills who wanted to look as beautiful as possible. We had Rastafarians, hippies who ate this way, knew about it. We had people who were ill, sick, given prognosis from their doctors that they might not make it, who were desperate and wanted to find some cure or opportunity for better health. So we had such a cross section of people, every race, color, religion that you can imagine. The people like Gypsy Boots were, uh, I mean, this lifestyle was just inbred in them. They were raised that way. This is how they lived. And so it was different from somebody who picked up a book and read it and then said, oh, well, I think I'll do that too. This was ingrained, this lifestyle in them.